Warning: this episode contains some strong language. Listener discretion is advised. Additionally, this episode's reading carries content warning for some ableist themes around deafness. If this is something that you would like to skip out on, feel free to skip forward to the 11-minute mark. Hello, and welcome to Tales from the Trunk, reading the stories that didn't make it. I'm Hilary B. Bisniaks. Listeners, I am thrilled today for the beginning of this, our 5th season of Tales from the Trunk, to welcome an author, an essayist, amazing, spooky person, Suzan Palumbo. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm Spooky Palumbo.
You're Spooky Palumbo. If Twitter is still here in October, I think we've got your Halloween name for the year.
Yeah, actually, I don't need to wait for Halloween. I just use it now, Spooky Palumbo.
Perfect. I mean, I honestly haven't taken down my Halloween name since I think I put it up in maybe October of 2020. And, that's just who I am now.
This is efficient.
Yeah,
it's efficient. It's who you are. Why not live your best life?
Yeah. Every day is Halloween. Wasn't that is that a Ministry song, or is that one of them?
I'm not sure. But, I mean, it's a proverb, maybe.
It's a proverb. It is a philosophy of life. And if it is a Ministry song, I'll put it in the show notes. Or if it isn't a Ministry song, I'll also put it in the show notes. I'll correct myself. Future listeners, you get to enjoy Hilary who knows things as opposed to Hilary who just pops off at the mouth. Suzan, you're going to be reading Fricatives. Is there anything that we need to know about it before we get in?
All right. This is a story probably I wrote in 2018. Maybe earlier, I can't remember, because
Time
this
is
is a
fake, who
version.
knows?
Yeah, it's a version of the story, and the story started earlier than 2018. I do want to say that, and this is probably part of the reason why I trunked the story, is that I do feel that it it delves a bit or crosses the boundary into a little bit of ableism. So I, particularly with hearing, even though that's not what the story is about specifically. So I just want to put that up as a signpost that is in the story, sort of, or implied, and, for people to be aware of it while they're listening.
Absolutely. And listeners, in the future, you will have heard a content warning at the beginning of the show telling you how you can just skip the reading if that's what you want to do.
Because I want to make sure I don't.
Yeah, no, we love our past selves and honor the fact that they have made mistakes and we can learn from it.
Yeah, I've learned. I reread this story the other day and I was like, oh, I can see exactly where my work comes from now. Like, I can see lines that I've reworked and put into other things I've sold. But yeah, this story did not sell and is not going out anywhere.
All right, well, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, this is very short. Fricatives. They let me see Vi in recovery an hour after she comes out of general anesthesia. She looks pale, thinner, with only her head and upper body visible above the white sheet. The room is sparse, completely devoid of her thoughts. How are you? Heat creeps up my neck. Stupid. Of course she isn't responding. She can't hear you think anymore. Hi, Zell. Her jaw chomps at the air. She's been practicing physical speech for over a year. Interdental fricatives, voice stops. Terminology I didn't know existed until she decided to have the comm chip removed from her cerebrum.
Hmm.
I dictathink to the tablet she bought for me before the procedure and hold it up to show her. You okay? I've made progress with signing, but haven't been practicing enough with the language vids. My voice is brittle. I can't respond vocally like she'd hoped. It's weird being the only one inside my head, she says. I'm not sure whether she means good weird or bad weird, without hints of her internal commentary. All I have to go on are her chapped lips curving up at the corners and the memory of her wry inner humor. I smile and kiss her cheek. The routine surgery's gone well, but they want to keep her overnight to make sure she doesn't become disoriented or confused. We don't communicate much. I adjust her pillows and ensure she makes it safely to the washroom. Later, I ease my thoughts into the cloud like it's a warm bath, to chat and let our friends and family know Vi's fine. I snap pictures with the comcam implanted on the back of my hand as evidence. Post selfies of our faces squished together on our social bullet board. It's dark when our car drives me home. I slip off my shoes and curl up on the couch. The quiet's sharp, cold. I never wanted Vi to go through with this. Still don't understand fully why she'd want to sever her connection with the entire world. With me. I'm drowning, she tried to explain one night after dinner. Her thoughts were thick, weary. Everyone has just one more thing to share. At work, at home. She stops herself from continuing. But Vi, what you want is isolation. Physical speech is so inefficient. We don't even know if we'll be any good at it. I've had the chip since elementary school. It's too much input, Zell. I'm not the first to have it removed. I slept alone on the couch that night, like I am now. Discharged in the next afternoon is awkward. Vi's unsteady. When she shifts off the bed, I don't know where to position myself to support her. Her elbow knocks into my face. I grab my chin, wait for an apology, but she hasn't registered the contact. It's easier to let it go, so I gather up her toiletries and put them in her bag. The discharge nurse explains how to care for the incision at the back of Vi's skull. Once out loud, once in thoughts directed at me. I listen to both spiels and can't help but notice the difference in tone. The nurse's articulation is flawless. Her lilt is musical with Vi. I guess the talk is also meant to demonstrate the fluency Vi might achieve. The nurse's instructions pinwheel around the word patience when she talks to me. As you know, Vi can't send or receive messages through the wireless neural comm networks anymore. This will be easier if you both make a concerted effort at communicating. I shake my head when the nurse asks if I have any questions. She touches my elbow before she leaves. Vi tries to chat on the drive home. Her words are clipped, her syllables chisel at the air. All I can manage in response is the guttural cry of a wounded animal from the base of my throat. At our apartment, she rests on the couch. Our neighbors, Mike and Shell, drop by after a couple of hours. They wave their hands in big arcs and smile exaggerated smiles. Take turns dicta-thinking small talk on the screen affixed to the wall. How are you? Must be really quiet. Ha ha. We'll have to take up manual speech. When they grow impatient with Vi's labored responses, they turn to me. Whoa, she's totally offline. We're getting nothing from her. Yeah, it's a big change. How are you going to manage this? You can't speak. I force positive thoughts in their direction. Pity saturates theirs. I'm exhausted after they go. I leave Vi and lie down in the bedroom. She laughs at some program on the comm and the sound slices through me. My ache for the lost intimacy of a shared internal joke is visceral. She shuffles in after a while and sits on the edge of the bed. What's wrong? Her mouth strangles the words. You expected me to accept this separation all along. This isn't what I signed up for when we decided to live together. Everything is bottled up in my head, and my disused vocal cords are a stopper. Tears prick the corner of my eyes. She hands me the tablet, but the barrier it represents is a burden in my hands, and I don't want to carry it. I toss it onto the parquet floor, and it shatters at our feet. Vi's eyes grow wide. 1,000 slivers litter the floor between us. She can't ignore the message I'm sending. I see, she says. She stands and shuffles to the door. I'll call my dad. Stay with him for a while. She slams the door behind her. I wipe my face and lay on my back. There's a weight compressing my chest that won't shift. I pucker my lips and push the air out of my lungs. It rattles up my throat and fills my mouth. Wait! I rasp into the empty room. I bite my lip and hope she hears me. The end.
Whew. Jiminy criminy. Like, I see exactly what you mean about, like, there is definitely some unexamined, stuff around deafness in there, but that's also just like, I don't know, right before we started recording, we were talking about the, like, crazy ass state of the world and Elon Musk and all this bullshit, and thinking about how, like, there are so many bros who would cape for exactly this situation.
Yeah, it is. That's why also when I picked it, I was like, oh, this is so related to where we are right now with these chips and, recording your thoughts and taking pictures, and there is no intermediary. There is no AI involved with it. Like
Yeah.
there's a chip and it produces what you want, right? That I mean that I would use maybe.
But, like, yeah, just, like, woof.
I know, and I when I wrote this, I mean, this is why it's a trunked story because
Mm-hmm.
I I thought I I did a good job writing it, but then I thought this was not I don't have this disability.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about deafness, but there are a lot of uh not similarities, but what's the word? It's the vector. It's a
Yeah,
shared
like,
vector.
it's a shared through line.
Yes, and I thought to myself, I had submitted it a couple times, but I was nervous, and I thought, you know what, this is not my story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I thought, like, it's pretty okay written. So
Yeah.
I thought to myself, okay, you're gonna put this aside because it's not for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, like, something that I think everybody has to learn at some point, and, like, but also, like, it takes some people a real long time to learn it, and it's really, like, the earlier you can get the idea of, like, sometimes a thing is not for me, and that is okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time what happens is you put in effort into something. And when
Mm-hmm.
you put that effort in, you sort of expect you put yourself into it and you sort of expect a result or you
Mm-hmm.
expect a reward. That's what we're taught, right? You try your best, and if you try your best, you'll achieve something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think often with stories or with art, the thing that you're achieving isn't necessarily a acceptance all the time. Sometimes it's you've learned a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it ended up being a good exercise in prose for me.
Right.
Um, and setting up a story and writing a short story. But it wasn't worth it to me to send it out and then to have someone, you know, recognize sort of their in it and then be like, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not how it is. I didn't
Yeah,
want to hurt anybody.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm I can't remember if I've mentioned this on the show before, but, like, I had I wrote a very angry story right after I wrote a lot of very angry stories right after Trump was elected. Uh,
Right.
but
Understandably.
yeah, understandably. But the biggest one I wrote that I put like the most time and effort into was completely not my story to tell. It was about, you know, somebody who I am a white person. It was about somebody
Hmm.
not white getting rounded
Right.
up by the feds and
Hmm.
like dealing with that in their own way. But I finished it and then I was like, you're there are so many axes along which this is not your story, my dude. Like, good for you for writing it. Good for you for realizing this. Put it away. Nobody will ever have to see it.
And I commend you for that
Yeah,
because,
thank you.
sometimes I think people think the compassionate thing to do would be to put the story out, to show people
Mm-hmm.
how compassionate I am. Like, let me show people that I'm thinking about them, right? But, and this is not just for you because we're talking about me trunking a story.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes putting what you think isn't really showing compassion as much as it is centering,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
And that's, that's something I think we watch in real time about every 2 weeks when somebody else elects themselves main character of the internet.
yeah.
Is like how that gets responded to, and in some cases I mean, normally the people who elect themselves main character aren't the ones who are learning the good lessons, but we can always hope.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
I've seen some takes though. I don't know what's
I've
happening.
I don't know. And on the other hand, like Joyce Carol Oates having a face turn on Twitter this week and suddenly yelling at transphobes, amazing. We love to see it.
Yeah, like that to me, I feel like she's just like, I'm gonna just say whatever I want to say, and she's sitting on her porch and she's watching
Yep.
things go on, and she's just like randomly calling out stuff. And
She
sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's like, please just drink your tea.
yeah, she really tweeted through it though. She got to the other side. Let's hope she stays there, but like who the fuck
I hope
knows?
so. I have to say this. So a lot of the time she says things and I disagree obviously with a lot
Mhm.
of it. But I do occasionally think of Joyce Carol Oates because I hadn't heard from her in a while, and I was like, I
Mhm.
wonder what Joyce is doing. What's going on, Joyce? What are your
What's
thoughts
happening
on,
with her
like,
today?
yeah, or what are her thoughts on the state of Twitter? Like, I haven't heard them. I don't follow her. So
Mhm.
whenever she makes it into my timeline, it's because she's done something. And I
Yep.
hadn't heard anything, and I was like, what is she gonna do? What is she gonna do? What is Joyce Carol Oates gonna do if this site crashes?
Turns out it's wild. It is wild. So I wanted to circle back kind of on something that you said right before reading this of when you reread this the other day in preparation, being able to like see the through lines towards your current writing. And wondering if you can just talk a little bit more about that, because I always find that to be so interesting.
Well, it's funny. I You tend to see themes sort of continue, right? And I
Mm
think I started writing I started writing for submission in 2015.
hmm. Mm hmm.
And when I started with that, I wasn't really writing queer work.
Mm hmm.
I was very closeted.
Right.
But
Yep.
the stories were sort of queer, but not in a very uh I don't know what the word is, extroverted way.
Mm hmm.
Um and so I think this is around just after when I started writing queer work. And I have a story that came out in Lightspeed in October, and
Mm-hmm.
it's called Apolépisi, a descaling. And in that story, it's the setup is very similar to this. There are two merfolk, and one is
Mm-hmm.
going through a medical change, and the other one has to deal with it. And so I can see, and it's about merfolk. And she actually even says in the story, which when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh. She says, I'm drowning, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
use that line in that story in Lightspeed. She's gonna drown, or she's gonna drown. So the idea is still there with two people and one of them feeling like they're going to drown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I believe, or I think, the reason why I was more comfortable submitting that story and sending it out was because that story I feel was my story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
It deals with a lot of gender issues. It deals with being queer. It deals with being a caretaker for someone who's ill. It
Mm-hmm.
deals with resentment, and those are all my things. So I
Mm-hmm.
felt more comfortable putting that out. But all of that stuff is in this story.
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked when I read this. I was like, you wrote this is a very similar story to what you had published. You just made it more you instead of trying to be like, okay, technology and
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't you. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know. I don't know what I'm going on.
no, no, no. This is great. Like I have definitely like done that same ship of Theseus thing with a story before, like more intentionally, but it is also like I have, read things that I've written. At this point, I've been, oh God. Listeners, you're hearing me have an existential crisis live on the air. I just realized that I've been writing work to submit for almost 20 years, and that's a
Woo!
terrifying thought.
Is it, or is it like, I mean, obviously you feel the way you feel, right?
Yeah.
But it's your thing then. I mean, if it's 20 years, it's your thing.
It's my thing. Yeah, no, it's good. It's just wild to think about. Like, I had this realization the other day of like, My Chemical Romance's The Black Parade turns 20 in a few years.
Right.
And having this thing of like that came out after I was in high school. And for that to be almost 20 years old, like I've come to terms like the Postal Service's Give Up just turned 20. I'm okay with that. Like Plans is going to turn 20 in a couple of years. I'm okay with that cuz that came out when I was in high school. But like the idea that like high school is going to be more than 20 years in the past, even though, like, I hated high school. I hated everything about it pretty much. And, but, like, it also, shaped me. So,
Oh, yeah, I had a strange experience in high school. For the first couple years, I was really, well, for most of my life until high school, probably about grade 10, my nickname was Weirdo. Like they actually
mm
called me that. I had no friends. No one would talk to me. So I guess I developed that, okay, I'll just be humorous and hopefully people will like me sort of
hmm.
personality. And then I don't know what happened with me between grade 10 and 11, but grade 11 I sort of hit my personality. I found my
Oh,
personality, my in, and I was able to have a better time in the last, because when I was in high school, we had 5 years of high school. So the
yep.
last 3 years ended up great, but the first bit was horrid.
hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, you said that, I was like, oh, yeah. I remember. I remember when high school was 5 years in Canada.
Yeah.
Wild thing.
Yeah, I don't know. When they changed it to 4, I was like, but is that enough time? Just like, because you gotta be a grown up after.
Yeah, no, I like when I was, getting ready to go into high school, I remember talking to my Canadian friends and being like, oh, you have to do 5 years. Like, that's so long. And now I'm thinking, like, no, that's not enough time.
Yeah,
You're not
I
fully
mean,
baked yet when you come out.
I don't even think I was fully baked last year.
I mean, I was fully baked the other weekend, if you know what I mean. I was not. I was not. I we have the legal weed here. I do not really partake of it. I just get stupid, and we don't need that. But
I yeah, I'm gonna
yeah.
refrain from commenting.
Uh, so when I was like getting ready to get on this recording, I was looking back because I remember that we had a really fascinating conversation on Twitter, and I was like, at the end of it, I was just like, "Hey, do you want to come on here to talk more about that?" And I was looking back
And
because I
can
was
I tell
like,
you something?
"Yes,
I
please."
forgot what it was. And I was sitting here thinking, I know they asked me a specific topic, and I can't remember what it is.
I
I
didn't
was
write
like,
it
you know
down
what?
either.
And I was like, I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna wing it.
Yeah. No, I 100% did the thing I always do of like, I'll remember this later. And then when I looked, I was like desperately trying to Google this. The only thing I could find when I just like Googled our Twitter handles was talking about drinking pickle juice and buying gas station pickles. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a pickle cast now.
But that was a great
That was a
conversation. Do you
great
know how many people
conversation.
do you know how many people show me bags of pickles now? Like
So
whenever they
many.
go to a gas station, I get like, "Hey, I know Susan wants to see this," and it's this bag of pickles. I love it.
Hopefully I'll be able to pull that up again when I am putting together show notes for this,
Well, I
because
mean, you
that
know,
was an
I
all
can come
timer.
back the pickles
The
or
pickles.
oh,
I
I
mean,
I
or
was
I'll search it and then it'll give us what we were actually going to be talking about, and then I'll be like, oh shit,
I think it was related to submitting, obviously, or
it
something like
was,
that.
yeah. You are on Twitter.com saying smart things about writing all the time. I'm sure it was
Is it
something
smart?
smart
Is it
about
smart
writing.
really? I don't know what I'm doing on there.
I I mean, one, I hardly go on there anymore. Like I,
It's
lurk. I
hard to
watch
be on
things.
there.
It's a shit show. I go on Mastodon sometimes. It's nice. It's quieter.
Um,
It's a different thing. I mostly just spend time on Discord now and
right.
Slack, which is just like much more curated community. I mean, like some of the fandom servers I'm in are like huge, and I have no idea who most of the people are. But like, you know, it's
Yeah.
kind of feels like a simpler age in some ways. Of like, we're going back to like we're posting on a message board.
Yeah, it's calmer. Um, and it is nice to not have to sort of be self-monitoring or self-conscious. Not that you don't have to like pay attention to what you're saying, but when
Mm-hmm.
you're in a community like that, usually people know you, and
Yeah.
so they are sort of aware of your intention, or they'll ask you to clarify.
Yeah.
Whereas, on Twitter,
It's
it's a public square, so anybody
yeah.
can take anything anyway.
It's always no nuance November on Twitter.
Yeah, no nuance November. I didn't know about that month.
I honestly, I don't remember if that's an old thing, if that's just a thing that I heard on TikTok this past year. I have no clue. Like, I just, as one of those things, like, for me personally, like, TBT used to be like, oh, people would post hashtag TBT on Thursdays to do throwbacks, and now it's just a thing that you say to indicate, like, oh, I'm throwing back to whatever. It doesn't matter what the fuck day it is. Like,
Oh,
it's just a thing for me now. I mean, I don't
I
know if that's
see.
everybody or if that's just me.
I'm not really up with the current things. I'm in a cave.
That's fair. That's fair. I, like, yeah. There's total tangent. I feel like there's another. Oh, that's what it is. It's Shut the Fuck Up Friday, which is, I think,
Oh,
might just be a joke from a podcast I listened to. I don't know if the table friends got it from somewhere else. Shout outs to friends at the table for introducing me to the idea of Shut the Fuck Up Friday.
so you have to be quiet on Friday?
I think it's more just like a don't run your mouth and get yourself in trouble.
Oh boy, that would be hard for me. I
Especially on
mean, maybe it
twitter.com.
would be, yeah, I mean, maybe if it was one day a week. Like, I like that they've dedicated it, like, on
Yeah.
Friday, just that day. The
It's
rest of
just
the
Friday.
days,
Yeah.
run amok.
Do what you need to the rest of the days, but on Friday, nope. We're closing our mouths. We're not getting in any problems. We're gonna be well hydrated. We're gonna be moisturized. We're gonna be in our lanes.
Lovely. Moisturized lanes.
It's after work and I'm punchy. Yeah, podcasts.
I love it.
Um, oh yeah, no, it's like the joy of having a podcast is I'm the one who edits this. I get to decide how off the rails it goes at the end of the day, and by the end of the day, I mean usually like 2 days before the episode is supposed to drop. It's all great. It's all great. So one of the one of the things that to try to get us back onto writing, because that is we are a writing podcast. This is a fan cast here. We're firmly trying to occupy that space on people's Hugo ballots. There is this thing that is always like inevitably whenever you talk to another writer about doing the submission dance, it always comes back to like, how do you deal with the fact that it's just a constant game of rejection? And I think that might have been part of what the conversation was that led us to scheduling this podcast episode 3, 4 months ago.
I've had a strange sort of arc as a writer. I don't necessarily, I've been, I think I've been a little bit lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I didn't really write very much creative or like any kind of fiction
Mm-hmm.
um when I was, how most people they're like, I have a book that I wrote when I was 12
Oh yeah.
and it had an elf and the elf went to fight a dragon and I had to I trunked that and they were like I read a lot as a teenager and I wanted to write short stories but I always tried to start but I couldn't finish.
Mm-hmm.
um, I did write a really good story though in my writing class. I took a writing class, but they mostly did essays, but we had to do a short story and I killed it. But I
Nice.
put that away. I was like, we are doing serious things. We're not that fiction isn't serious, but we're doing serious English
Mm-hmm.
things. So I took English literature and history in school. And I did not start writing fiction until um and submitting it until 2015.
Right.
And I think my brain had stewed a long time on stories, and I spent a long time reading them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first story that I submitted um, sold to Diabolical Plots. Like I started
We love it.
submitting it in I started submitting it in I think it was April 2015
Mm-hmm.
and it got rejected by Shimmer and it got rejected by a couple other places. And then I
Rip
sent
Shimmer.
it to Diabol. Oh, I slush read for Shimmer. I loved Shimmer after the rejection, not before.
Right, yeah.
Um, and it got accepted in August of 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in a way that was exciting because you send out your first story and it
Yep.
gets accepted, and it's everyone's like there's this list and it's like yay pro rates and all these things. But I think that was not the best for me as a writer
Mm-hmm.
because it didn't set me up for the following 2.5 years of constant rejection.
Mm-hmm.
I it was really difficult, and I kept submitting. I'm not as prolific as other writers. I write maybe one or two, maybe three stories a year, but
Mm-hmm.
in that span I had with those three stories probably about 200 or 300 rejections. Like it was over 100 and not
Mm-hmm.
close to 100. It was close to 200. And I was demoralized and
Mm-hmm.
crying, and I was very ready to give up writing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how did I deal with that? I started thinking, okay, well, whatever I'm doing is not working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for whatever reason. So I need to start doing something else and focus on getting better at whatever that else thing is
Mm-hmm.
because the thing that I've chosen to focus on is not working. Um, so I spent a lot of time just reading and
Mm-hmm.
talking to people about how to write stories. And I actually, Elise at Shimmer offered to read this one of the stories that kept getting rejected, and she
Mm-hmm.
was like, "You have a pattern." Well, she read the story and she's like, "This is what's wrong with it. You are not writing complete stories. It's beautiful, but it doesn't have any depth." So then I
Mm-hmm.
went off and thought about how can have more depth. So I think I've combated the constant rejection with okay, I'm getting rejected constantly. I need to go and learn something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily always know what it is I need to learn, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't sit there and think you suck, you keep getting rejected anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of channel it into, okay, let me go and read about this or let me go and find out about this. I don't just focus on the rejection itself, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah. Let me tell you, as somebody who did not sell their first story and was also 18 at the time that they were starting to rack up rejections,
Right.
cry about it was a whole lot of what I did.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one thing about writing is that, we talk about rejection, we talk about how it gets to you. But we talk about it in ways that are sort of sanitized. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel down or I feel depressed. No, listen, I was crying.
Yeah.
I was sobbing over it because I was like, what am I doing wrong? And you spend so much time writing these things and they're so personal. You put so much of your heart into it. It's really
Mm-hmm.
difficult not to take it personally.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like it's so important to actually like we in the golden age of science fiction Twitter circa, 2015 to like 2018 or so, I want to say, like
Yeah, we're not in the golden age
we're
right
not in
now.
the golden age anymore, but like during that golden age of like of writer and fandom Twitter, there we started seeing like a lot more people doing transparency stuff around this. Like I'm thinking about,
Mm,
John Wiswell would do roundups of, here's how many things I submitted and here's how much stuff got rejected and,
right,
and here's how all the sales that I made, which like we love to see it. Stan one John Wiswell. And
right.
also like and this is not as like a way to criticize that in any way, but like every there's an amount of pantomime around it, specifically around talking about rejections, that I
Mm-hmm.
still think like, I like it's hard because I want to think about like writer Twitter as having a future and don't know that that's the case because fuck billionaires and Elon Musk specifically. But
Mm-hmm.
like, the the overwhelming loneliness that you feel when you're a brand new writer and you're getting rejections back is like
Oh
something
yeah.
that doesn't get talked about. And like, it's perfectly reasonable to say like, whoops, I got a rejection, gonna go eat some cake now. Like that is A plus, perfect response to getting a rejection. Definitely have some
Well,
cake, but also like it's it feels sometimes like it's couching it all as like, oh, this is, haha, funny. My emotions don't actually like have an impact.
I were we talking about the professionalization was I talking to you
Oh,
about that?
fuck, we were. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We
This
did it.
this you
We
talking.
podcasted our way
Yeah.
through it.
Sorry, you gotta cut that out. But it's like you're talking about it, and I'm like, no, 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 no. This reminds me of something. Yes. Okay. Well, I don't have to leave right away because now we figured out our topic. 40 minutes into the show.
Perfect. A plus podcasting.
Okay, so yes, uh, this is one of my things, and it's such a difficult uh balance or dichotomy, or it's something. It's not difficult. It frustrates me, it confuses me, and
Mm-hmm.
it's that we have all of these professional behaviors that we have to you said pantomime.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it does feel like that. I do often feel, and again, this is not me saying anything pointed at anybody specifically, but like we are, I first and foremost consider myself a very chaotic artist goth,
Mm-hmm.
like a weird person, right?
Yep.
That's what I am. That's what when I'm not professional. I don't get up every day. I mean, I do get up at weird hours and I do work early, but I am not in a routine. I do not produce work. I do not sit down and have my water cooler chat and then do my writing and then walk
Mm-hmm.
off and, have lunch and then come back to it. And I feel so much of writing is professionalized in a
Mm-hmm.
way. And that's needed in some respects because we are submitting things and you have to hit deadlines if you want to submit something and there are contracts. So all of that exists. But I am a chaotic weirdo
Yeah.
and and I want to feel things. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to feel, and when I have feelings, this is going to be about my feelings. When I have feelings, they are not within the parameters of what is acceptable in an office setting.
Mm-hmm.
I have very strong feelings about many things, and that's why I write my stories. And I feel a lot of the time that it's like, yeah, okay, we want you to be chaotic, Susan. We want that chaotic story, but not now and not like that.
Mm-hmm.
We want it on demand. We want it when we want it, and and you have got to be sort of professional when you talk to us, but go off and do your craziness. Do Sorry for the word, but like do your antics. We love
Mm-hmm.
to watch it, but we don't want it when we're dealing with you. When we're dealing with you, you have to be a business person, and I
Yeah.
find that extremely hard.
It's difficult because
Sorry,
we're
like this is the
artists.
topic. Yeah, we're
We
artists.
need to be in our little chaos gremlin caves, and when we like the best thing about the stuff I've written and sold recently has been that in every case I have written it for and sold it to another writer who already knows that I am a disaster. And
Right.
I
Like
have
agreeing, yes, you're a disaster.
hell yeah. Like I next month for listeners, 2 months out for us. I have a piece going up in Sarah Gailey's
Oh,
personal
yay.
canons cookbook, and like I just like and anybody who sees me tweet on the reg knows I'm like all lowercase all the time, except if it's
Hmm?
making a point type of person. And I just like was panicking this weekend because I was like, oh shit, do I have edits due like right the fuck now for that? Because I have notes back. When the fuck is that due? And just like, you know, slid into their DMs like, hey Sarah, is and it's like they get that. They get that I am a highly anxious, extremely chaotic person. But
Yeah,
like
I just
you can't do
feel
that with everyone.
no, and well, I mean, I do it publicly on Twitter quite a bit.
Right, yeah.
But um I think people get that I'm like that, but I feel I don't know, like I don't want to come across as like denigrating or like putting down other people's styles or putting down the way other people work.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not see as much embracing of the artist spirit
Mm-hmm.
in writers' circles.
Yeah.
There is some of it, and people are lovely and they're fun and they're all of those things. But I'm really that, movie montage of the painter swirling around paint and throwing it everywhere and walking away and yelling at the canvas and coming back and then,
Mm-hmm.
showing up at the gallery late and being like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what this means, you know,
Yeah.
and like dancing around. I am not a business person and I really it's I sometimes I feel constrained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I have my business sona that I put on when I go to my day job doing capitalism. And
Right.
I know that having been full-time work from home for 3 years now, it is much easier for like that facade to slip at even the slightest provocation now, and for people to see the like feral gremlin side of me at work, which
Right.
is mostly fine because at this point like my coworkers know the type of person that I am, but it's also like I don't go to Twitter for professionalism. I don't go to the internet for professionalism. It's a struggle for me to go onto my work Slack and be professional because most of my Slack usage as a unit of time is social, and I am a gremlin.
Yeah. No, and this ties into us talking about the crying,
Yeah,
right? Because crying is not professional. What did they say in that movies? There's no crying in baseball, right?
yeah.
And I'm like, but why? Why isn't there crying in baseball?
There should be
Like,
crying in
why
baseball. There should be a
why
baseball of
should
crying.
yeah. I mean, why should we not be passionate?
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to make a story that moves somebody. I'm trying to get at your heart. And if I don't
Mm-hmm.
have a heart myself, I don't know how it is possible to do it. I guess, but like I'm putting my heart into things and then I have to stop when I get rejected. How do I turn this on and off like a tap? I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you get into the thing where people is like, well, it's cringe. And I'm like, you know what? I'm at the stage in my life where I'm going full cringe.
Yeah.
Let me be cringe. If it's cringe and you think it's cringe that I'm being passionate about something, then fine. I'm cringe. You can go be non-cringe
Mm-hmm.
and let me enjoy my cringiness.
I think Miri Baker put it really well on this show last year. I think it was last year. Who knows? Time is fake. When she said, "Kill not that of you that is cringe, kill the part that cringes."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so poetic.
It's really good. It's like I heard that and I was like, okay, I have a new life motto. Like,
No, I mean I that's what it is. Like I sometimes I think about it like, some of the stuff I say and it's like, well, Susan, you're being a I don't really, I mean, it seems like I say a lot of personal things online. It's not really actual factual personal things. It's my feelings
mm-hmm.
that are factual. And sometimes I'm like, maybe you're being a little bit too volatile, you know? And
Yep.
it's like, but I'm alive only once,
Yeah.
so might as well be volatile.
Yeah. So this thought sprung into my head. So my dad has been working on this essay about artificial intelligence. My dad is 85.
All
He
right, go
has
dad.
been a science fiction fan since the 1950s.
Oh, so he
Uh,
knows.
he has a he does not engage with with modern technology. He does not have an answering machine. He does not have a computer. He writes letters to his friends on a typewriter.
I kind of like adore this.
He's incredible. He grinds my gears so often, but also he's my dad and I love him. And he's been working on this essay that, like, the last time I read it, it was written out in three different colors of pen on the backs of random pieces of paper,
You
had
see, this is the
literally been cut
artist.
apart and reassembled and like numbered so that he could rearrange it. Has this eternal essay that I'm like, one of my goals in life is to get him to finish it and get it published somewhere because
Right.
like I want his, but one of his points that he talks about artificial intelligence and how he doesn't believe that we're going to get a true machine intelligence or anything like that is like very much intersects with what we're seeing right now as we're recording this in late February of 2023 with the whole like chat GPT bullshit that people, I'm not going to get his phrasing right. It's like people are like scissors. They are by their nature plural and reciprocal. And like the thing that he's 85. He speaks like 8 different languages. He just comes up with these things.
Yeah.
But like the thing like an algorithm that guesses by statistics what word should come next cannot elicit an emotional response intentionally because it doesn't have
Right.
emotions.
Right. I I I I don't know. I have so many thoughts about this. Um like I can understand like okay, they've made this machine and they are like, "Okay, I've made this machine." And it can you put in a prompt and it makes up something.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so that's a thing you did. Great.
Yep.
And I don't understand clearly for myself why or what makes them feel good about being able to trick someone because
Mm-hmm.
that's what's happening, right? They want to write a story that is good enough to get past like with Neil, what's happening with Clark's World, to get past the slush readers, to get into his magazine, and then to say, okay, he bought the story. Now I get it. Part of it is a hustle. Part of it is a
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do much work. I just want to get paid.
Right.
But I don't, is that all it is, really?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so hollow. And I don't understand it. And I maybe this is, I'm always like, I'm a goth, I'm dark, I'm blah blah blah. But like, sometimes I just want to be like, okay, but do you want to come to my house and like draw pictures for the afternoon and see how fun it is?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or do you want to like paint something? Because it doesn't sound like you are getting any of that in your life. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
were enjoying and like laughing at yourself for making a mistake, or like doing something artistic with somebody, I don't think you would just turn around so easily and be like, I can do this for money. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I mean, maybe you'd still do it, but I don't think you would be so glib about it.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't understand when people don't feel.
A lot of people need a lot more enrichment in their enclosures.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I understand. As I said, I'm repeating myself, but like, I get it. You've made this thing and you want to do proof of concept, you want to show that it's a thing that works.
Mm-hmm.
But also, why would you want to trick somebody about feelings?
Yeah. It's it's like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
and it doesn't like. I don't think, to borrow a meme from what, like 2020. It doesn't spark joy.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't spark joy, and whereas when I write a story, the point of the story, I read this great thread and I cannot remember who did it. Maybe I'll email it you later to say who it is
Perfect.
so you can put it in the notes.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a thread about how stories are about emotional transference.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that, an AI doesn't have that because it doesn't feel anything.
Yeah.
And I think, that's an important part. This show is about rejection and it's about trunking things. And you have to feel you so working past rejection is a feeling, and you learn things, and
Mm-hmm.
you put that into the stories. And I want to write things that people connect with. When they
Mm-hmm.
read it, I want them to sort of leave a piece of themselves with the story, or
Yeah.
let the story steal a piece of them that they didn't know was that they didn't expect was
Yeah.
going to get stolen. And I don't see that at all from this sort of thing. I suppose, if we wanted to have just very easy things to read that didn't require much emotional sort of investment, I could
Mm-hmm.
see maybe it working, but that's not the kind of art I want to make.
Yeah. And like my so I do sometimes want to read easy things that don't make me think, and my father,
Right,
85 years old, calls those popcorn books, and I agree with
right,
that. Like, and but like when I want to do that, like I'll go get like the novelization of a video game or something, which
right.
you know is a popcorn book, and also like I think is a seriously underappreciated genre. Like the
Well,
fucking
there is, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
There
no, go
there
for it.
I, there is emotional transference there though, because
Mm-hmm.
there's someone created the game
Yep.
and it caused a feeling with you, and you are looking to, I don't know if you're looking to relive that feeling or if you're looking to have contact with that feeling in a written form. And so the
Mm-hmm.
writer is writing the book of that game, and they are trying to tap into that feeling. So they have to sit there and think, how do I recreate that in this book? Right? So
Mm-hmm.
even though it's a popcorn book, there's a lot of emotional work going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, for the writer, there's, you know, probably a fair amount of joy in getting paid to write official fan fiction,
Oh yeah.
which, like, you know, who, I know some people would say, well, yeah, no, I wouldn't, but like, who fucking wouldn't want to do that? Like, I am constantly in awe. Like, my one of my go-to popcorn series is the at this point like ancient novelizations of the Resident Evil games of the
Oh
first
yeah.
like 1, 2, 3 Code Veronica, and then she went back and wrote Res Evil Zero as well, and like some wild ass adventures that happen like in between the games. But like SD Perry got to make up shit for Resident Evil, which is like a fucking batshit amazing series.
No,
Like, who
that's
wouldn't want to do
fantastic.
that?
I mean, I would like to write Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. Like
Yeah.
I would just like to write it because I like how they make me feel. I like those characters. I like the comic books that they're in.
DC, if you're
And
listening,
I would
get
like to
at
do that.
Susan.
Please, I have written this on Twitter so many times. Please contact me, please. Um, but yeah, I no one is saying, like, I'm not saying that everything has to be a hard-hitting emotional, like,
Mm-hmm.
downer of a, I mean, I'm a bit of a downer with my stories, but like not everything has to be that. Even a popcorn book written by a human has emotional consideration
Mm-hmm.
built into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I listened to this podcast with Friends at the Table. I'm very chill and normal about it. The uh, Austin Walker, who's the GM for the games on there, uh, just released the like vibes only playlist that he made for the new season that's starting up any minute now. And I was listening to it, and he put a couple of tracks from Heems on there, and I was thinking, and like fucking banger ass tracks. He put Soup Boys and NYC Cops, which like if you haven't heard them, look them up. I will send you links to them after the show is done recording. And I was thinking about how I think so many people have slept on Heems because the only way that they're familiar with his work is that back when he was in Das Racist, he wrote combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell. And like,
Right.
that's, you can say, okay, that's a stupid meme song. And like, it is, but also, it's a slap. And also, like, writing off, writing that off as essentially meaningless by saying, like, oh, that's a stupid meme song, discounts the artistry of, like, it discounts the idea that anything that isn't, like, grimdark, gritty realism, AAA, prestige TV, whatever, isn't serious art. Like, a song about being at the Pizza Hut that's also a Taco Bell on the corner of Jamaica Avenue is makes me feel a thing. Like,
Right.
how is that not any
I
more important?
no, and this is an interesting topic for me because I don't generally write happy things, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this. I find that my happier work doesn't tend to get bought.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have another story Could have read that one. It was happy. It's a happy ending lesbian final girl slasher flash where they end up together at the end and they don't both die
I
because
love
they're
this.
both the final girl. Right. And it's happy. And I just I had a hard time selling that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like it ties into what you were saying. I think I don't know if I am at the point in my writing where it's like people expect a certain thing from me.
Mm-hmm.
But this was unexpected. And I like darker work. I tend to read darker work, but sometimes I do want to write something happy and I don't know where to send it sometimes
Mm-hmm.
or or what to
Yeah.
do with it. I mean, there are some happier markets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, I have another issue with this. I have issues with everything. I don't believe that um this is a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that work is either grim, dark, or happy. And I
Mm-hmm.
really feel that there's been this dichotomy set up. And it's like, well, I, you're a grim, dark writer, or you're a dark writer, and so you write dark things and you want this kind of catharsis. And I'm a hope punk person and I want to feel good about stuff. And it's like, I just, I feel like that's a very simplistic way to view stories. Of course, there are things that exist on the polar opposites, but,
Mm-hmm.
most of life isn't like that.
Reject false binaries.
Yeah, and so like, you can have a dark story with happy moments.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have a happy story with dark moments because that's life, right?
Yeah.
So I really sort of am a bit when people are like, this dichotomy and oh, you're so dark. And it's like, well, I find dark things comforting generally, but
Mm-hmm.
dark things don't always have to be a monotone feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And happiness doesn't have to be a monotone feeling.
Yeah.
I have no end cap thought. That was it.
It's good. It's good. I I want to try to claw us back in looking at the runtime right now. I'm like, oh yeah, this is just going to be a goblin episode. It's
We're
gremlins all the
goblins.
way down. But I just heard this weird noise, and this blue police box just showed up in the room, the podcast room, and I'm wondering if we can take a step inside and go back. If you can think of any words of wisdom that you'd like to offer to 2015 Susan Palumbo, and by extension to any of our listeners who may need those words of wisdom.
Oh, 2015 Susan Palumbo was a completely different person.
I mean, you did write some really banger stuff in the doc that we are theoretically referencing once in a while for this about
Right.
vulnerability. So,
Right. Well, I mean, I think so. I sometimes I dislike talking about myself this way because it sort of feels immodest and it feels like I'm Trinidadian and Trinidadians are really not raised to talk about their achievements
mm-hmm.
or to I mean some people do, but those are the cringe people and they're living their cringe life. But like
All the
it's
more
it's
power to
really
them.
yeah. But for me internally it's a really hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, I'm gonna say this and I don't like saying it, but I'm gonna say it. I I get a lot of commentary that people read my stories and they cry. Um the last year
Mm-hmm.
I had two short stories out. The one in Lightspeed and another one in the dark. And um I had a lot of commentary that people cried. Like I got people yelling at me in a good way, saying I
Mm-hmm.
made them cry. I think that is because I really put my heart on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to our cringe thing. It, those stories that I write are it's not me, it's not the character. Like, I am not the person. The situation is not exactly the situation I've been in, but I have every feeling I have written into those stories,
Mm-hmm.
have felt. And so, when people ask me to give myself advice in the past, I always say I would not give myself advice
Mm-hmm.
in the past because I had to go through all those feelings.
Right.
I had to be rejected that whatever 100 to 200 times. I had to cry. I had to be very frustrated with myself. I had to drag myself out of the closet. I had to
Mm-hmm.
deal with, all the issues of dealing with those things. And if I gave myself advice, that would have cut off some of that learning experience, and
Mm-hmm.
that learning experience would not have made it into my stories. And so,
Right.
this is bordering on you have to suffer for your art. And I'm not saying you have to suffer for your art. I'm saying you have
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying embrace embrace your vulnerabilities or embrace your feelings. The feelings
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be suffering. And if you can sort of keep those present when you write, I feel that the product, because,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about GPT chat,
Yep.
comes out, people connect with it. They can feel it. They can feel, oh, that's why I get people who cry and yell at me because they feel it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's because I felt it. So that's my advice to people generally, is to not be afraid to make yourself get upset or cry or while you're writing.
Hell yeah. I think that
You
that's
don't have to be
great
perfectly
advice.
professional, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Be a gremlin.
Drawing it back around to the definitely bagged pickles topic that we came on here to talk about.
Yeah. I was excited about those. I still
Yeah.
haven't gotten a bagged pickle. I need to, like, whenever I go to the States, if I ever end up there, like, my number one goal is get a bagged pickle and drink the pickle juice
Hell
out of
yeah.
this bag. Take pictures.
I support you in this. If I make it up to Canada at any point in the near future, I will import as many bagged pickles as customs will allow
I
me
will
to.
be there. You be like, listen, I got the stuff, and you'll show up.
Oh, that would probably be up there with my worst interactions with customs at the Canada-U.S. border.
Pickles?
If I was like, yeah, I'm just bringing a whole bunch of pickles to my friend. I've gotten some weird looks at the border in the past,
Oh,
along
yeah.
with being, a weird looking person, having some weird interests, not necessarily knowing social mores.
Hmm.
Yeah, good stuff. So before we get out of here, and before I drag us down with tales of customs and border patrol, uh, I know that you have something coming out in the fall here. I would love if you can tell us about Skin Thief.
Right. So we started this podcast with Spooky Susan.
Yep,
And so
Susan.
in the fall, um, my short story collection is coming out. It's called Skin Thief. Obviously, that's the title. And it's a short story collection. And, all of this all connects. I was saying in this story here that it connects to something I wrote in Lightspeed. These stories, while I've been writing all this time, I noticed that I had an issue with shapeshifters, with body horror, and with
Mm-hmm.
skin and changing. Um, and I got to the point where I was like, this is enough material to put together
Hell yeah.
into a short story collection. So, and so it's going to be, I think it's probably going to be about 12 or 13 stories. And they're linked by these themes of, shape shifting and that type of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I'm really excited about it. I love the cover. It's got the
Mm-hmm.
two people on it. What else can I tell you about it really quickly? Oh, okay. So, when you're putting together a short story collection, there's a lot of people talking, and they're like, okay, how are we going to order this? Right? How
Mm-hmm.
are you going to put this in order? And then you have the gremlin people who are like, I don't care about order. I just read any story. I just open the book and there's a story and I read it. And then I open the book to another page and then I read it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's those goblin people. But I wasn't being a goblin when I put this together. I put these stories together in a very specific order because there's
Mm-hmm.
an arc that happens throughout the story with the shape shifting.
Ooh.
And so the stories themselves are shapeshifter stories or stories where people find themselves or their identities. But the arc of the book is a shape-shifting arc. So
Oh, I love that.
when you read it, you will see that the tone and the language at the beginning of the book is much more Canadian, is
Mm-hmm.
much more, much more Western. And then as we go through the book sort of peels, like the characters sort of slowly change. And at the end, it's completely dialect and
I
completely
love that.
Trinidadian and a different set of folklore. So, I mean, when if you decide to buy this book,
Which
you
you
can
should.
read it, which you should. It has a very lovely cover, and Dave is uh like just such a wonderful person. So, support me and support Dave who puts out all this great queer work.
Yep.
Um,
We love Dave Ring. We
but
love Neon Hemlock.
we do. Dave is a good guy. But you can read it as you want it, pick and choose. But if you really want the maniacal sort of diabolical plan experience,
Mm-hmm.
you read the whole thing through in order.
That sounds like a great plan.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for this. I'm absolutely thrilled about this. And who knows? I haven't filled out my calendar for the year quite yet. Maybe you'll come back and go on book tour with
Oh
it
yeah.
later.
Yeah,
Hell
we
yeah.
we can talk about changing pickles, like shape-shifting pickles. We can talk about I love this. I've had a lovely time. It's been really easy and fun.
Excellent. Well, before we go, two quick questions. First, not a quick question, actually. Has there been any media that you've been consuming? Stories, books, video games, music, uh,
Oh boy.
random YouTube series, Let's Plays, who knows, that you're really pumped up about and want other people to get into as well?
Okay. So, I have said this everywhere. I've been playing Cult of the Lamb. I haven't
Mm
been playing much in the last couple weeks because I have deadlines. I have a story due tomorrow we were talking about, so I haven't been able to play. But I really love that game. I actually listened to the soundtrack, the Temple
hmm.
Sacrifice soundtrack, on repeat.
Nice.
Because I love it. It's so perfect. And you were talking about being asked to write a game or write a book.
Mm
I
hmm.
I so wish I had been on the team that created this game. It's
Yeah.
so cute. It's so satanic. It's like, what more do you want? Cute and satanic. It's perfect. I
It's
love it.
great.
Um, yeah, it's really good. Um, I just started watching Interview with the Vampire,
Oh, nice.
which I think I'm a little bit behind on that.
Mm
But
hmm.
I only saw the first episode. I really liked it. Um,
It looks
it's
real,
very
real
dark.
gay.
Oh, it's super gay.
I love that.
I
Anne Rice
love
would hate
it.
it.
Well, I don't know. She's not here, so
Yep.
um, but like yeah, I really liked the Louis and the actor who plays him, and it's an emotional story, and we're talking about emotion, and it hooked me. He
Mm-hmm.
has a scene at the end of the first episode where he's confessing, and I was like, okay, this is a good show. But when he started confessing, he
Oh.
did it with such conviction. And I was like, okay, you got me. You got
Mm-hmm.
me. What else? I haven't read this yet, but I'm looking forward to reading the book, I think it's called Tell Me I'm Worthless,
Mm-hmm.
by, I think her last name, I think it's her, Rumfit is her last name. And I'm using her, but I'm not sure if that's the correct pronoun.
We'll
Um,
have we'll have it all in the show
but
notes. It'll all be great.
good. But I'm looking forward to that because it's a um
Ooh.
gothic horror, and it's about a woman, and she goes to a house and something happens to her, and she
Yes, perfect.
comes away from
Excellent.
it, and I've heard only stellar reviews. What else do I like? I haven't read too much this year because I've been consumed with several deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mood.
I did go to the symphony though. I did go
Oh.
to the symphony. Yeah, and I'm one of my look. I'm going off now. I One of my favorite composers is Prokofiev. I
Oh,
listened to
Prokofiev is great.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um,
Joys
I
of
just
having an
I
85-year-old father.
listen. This is a blessing. I absolutely love him, and so I finally, it's been a life goal to get to see the Romeo and Juliet suite. And
Mm-hmm.
I like the hits from it, the Montagues and the Capulets, but the Death of Tybalt is such
Oh,
a banger. And
yeah.
I'm like, people, you know what? Put on Death of Tybalt and see how
Mm-hmm.
ballet can be a banger. I loved
Mm-hmm.
it. It was great. I don't know if anybody's gonna go do that, but like, I'm being weird today.
I'm gonna put it in the show notes. If you're interested, you should click on it. If you're not interested, too bad. Click on it anyway.
Yeah. When they were playing it, I was like, whoa. In the symphony. I was the
That's
only
the kind
person
of
like that though.
that's the kind of reaction you want to have. Like that
Yeah.
that's it all comes back. We're talking about art. Art is supposed to make you feel a thing.
Yeah, when you get rejected, you're supposed to feel something. You don't have to wash it away right away. I mean, it's not great to wallow for the rest of your life, but you're allowed to
Mm-hmm.
feel.
Yeah,
Okay, there
absolutely.
was one more question, I
There
think,
was one
right?
more question. The final question is uh we've talked around it a lot. Where can our listeners find you online in case they want to see you full gremlin mode 24/7?
Oh my gosh. What am I like? Okay. So, I am currently on, and the most active on Twitter, because it suits my gremlin behavioral patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's at Silly Syntax, which I think is pretty easy to remember. And then I was like, okay, I had to branch out a bit because we don't know the stability, because Twitter is a
Yeah.
gremlin also, so we don't know what Twitter is doing. So I'm also on Instagram, and that's at Gothic Syntax.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am on Mastodon. I believe that's Silly Syntax as well. Susan Palumbo at Silly Syntax. I'm not great at Mastodon. Just
That's fair.
because it's not as chaotic,
Mm-hmm.
but I
Yeah,
I
it
am
has
there.
quieter energy.
Yeah, it's quieter, which is lovely. Um, but not necessarily me, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. What else? I have a website, and it's susanpalumbo.wordpress.com, I
That
think.
sounds right. It'll be in the show notes.
Yeah. So,
That's a
I mean,
problem for future Hillary.
yeah. I have to update it a little bit, but if anyone ever wants to send me a nice message, there's a contact form. You could be like, "Hey, I like your stuff."
Listeners, you have two jobs now. First, listen to Prokofiev's Death of Tybalt. Second, send
No,
Susan a
you
nice.
don't. No, you don't have to.
If you enjoyed this episode,
Hope you enjoyed it.
I think you'll enjoy it. Listeners, you've had a good time.
Well, I mean, it would be meta if they rejected the episode.
It would be. It would be a wild thing. Well, Susan, it's been so much fun having you on the show. I
Thank you for
really,
having me.
absolutely. Anytime I can get somebody on to just have unhinged gremlin time with me is A plus in my books.
Yeah, no, it's been lovely. I've had a lovely time, and this has been very relaxed, so
Excellent.
it's good.
That's the goal. Listeners, stick around next month when my guests will be Lads and Brandon O'Brien.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're having like a Trinidadian uh streak, you know?
Yeah.
It's
No,
great.
I'm very excited. I did not intentionally set it up this way, but it is a thing that I want to do. And like
Do it.
Brandon's work is great, and hopefully by the time we record that episode, I will still remember why I asked him on initially, other than just like, Brandon O'Brien's awesome. We should have Brandon O'Brien on the show.
No, what will happen is you guys will be talking. You'll be talking, and then you'll be like, "Oh yeah, this is why I'm here." 40 minutes into the show.
40 minutes into the flawless podcast, A plus.
Thank you.
Tales from the Trunk is mixed and produced in beautiful Oakland, California. Our theme music is Paper Wings by Lillian Boyd. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/trunkcast. All patrons of the show now get a sticker and logo button, along with show outtakes and other content that can't be found anywhere else. You can find the show on Twitter, theoretically, at Trunkcast, and I tweet at HBBisnieks. If you like the show, consider taking a moment to rate and review us on your preferred podcast platform. And remember, don't self-reject.